Good evening. Welcome to tonight's live stream. I am going to get started in a minute. I just need to let everybody on social media know that the stream is currently on the air. What's going on, computer worldwide? What's going on, Nightingale Wednesday night? And they're glad to see you here. What's going on, Black Knight Mon? I am going to get started with tonight's show. And tonight's show is me continuing to talk about the fallout of the 2024 election. Now, on Wednesday, I did an impromptu show talking about the fallout as related to the 2024 election, as related to the political people, such as former President Joe Biden and Kamala Harris winding up losing the election. And tonight, I wanted to talk about the other part of that fallout, which is the complete implosion of Hollywood's influence on America. Now, in this 2024 presidential election, Kamala Harris went out here and recruited lots of big name celebrities. And as she went out here recruiting all of these big name celebrities, she thought that they would have an influence on America's voters. And she thought that these celebrities would persuade people to go to the polls to go vote for her. Unfortunately, what happened with Kamala Harris is she found out the hard way that when it came to the celebrity in Hollywood, they don't have the influence over the American people like they used to over 50 years ago. Now, about 50 years ago, a celebrity's endorsement would be able to persuade people to go out here and support a certain candidate. And this was something I saw way back when I was about 18 years old in 1992. Now, when I was about 18 years old, I was still in high school, doing a fifth year in high school in order to clear up some credits from some issues I had back in my freshman year. And as I was in that fifth year in high school, they had a voting drive as related to that election. I remember the influence of celebrities back then in persuading people how to vote. Now, back in 1992, a celebrity had a lot of influence over the vote because during that time, I saw the impact of Bill Clinton on the American people when he went onto the Arsenio Hall show, which was on the air at the time. Now, as Bill Clinton came on the Arsenio Hall show, he was able to persuade a lot of us Gen X black voters to go out here and head to the polls because he had the courage to go on the Arsenio Hall show and go play the saxophone. And that symbolic gesture made us believe that Bill Clinton was a down dude. We thought because he was a down dude, he was going to do something for black people. And that basically got a lot of black people emotional to go to the polls because if he could go on the Arsenio Hall show and appear with a black man who was cool, that would be able to get out the black vote. Moreover, Bill Clinton was able to go on MTV, and as he went on MTV, it basically changed the entire dynamics of MTV. Now, MTV back in the day was music television. It was a channel mostly for music videos, and basically people came there to see music videos, but because they wanted to get the influence of Bill Clinton over Gen X, leftists went out and had him do interviews on MTV, and that got out the young white vote, and that showed the impact of Hollywood's influence on voters because you could just have a celebrity stand there with a candidate, and as they stood there with that candidate, they basically we thought that that candidate was for us, and that's because many of us young people who were part of Gen X didn't understand the subtle politics transpiring around us, and since we didn't understand the subtle politics transpiring around us, a lot of us got hoodwinked and bamboozled as related to the political process to support a candidate like Clinton, who made it look like he was cool for black people on the outside. But as he got into office, he started implementing policies like the 94 crime bill. And that 94 crime bill was designed to persecute black men and black people, again, instituted by Senator Joe Biden at the time. And again, that was showed the impact of Hollywood's influence on voting and how you could bamboozle a generation into going out here and voting for a candidate. Now, Hollywood has always had influence over elections because, again, they could spellbind and mesmerize the masses. They could go out here and spellbind and mesmerize the masses into supporting their candidates. And that was all by design because the media machine that was controlled by Hollywood basically controlled the narrative as related to these celebrities, and with the Hollywood machine basically under the control of controlling these celebrities, they could push whatever narrative they wanted to present regarding them. And it was that whole infrastructure that allowed celebrities to have influence on people for about a good 75 to 100 years. I mean, ever since Hollywood got established in California, they have always been able to have influence over people, and they've been able to have influence over people because oftentimes they come up here and create a story around a person, and that story they create around that person is the thing they can go out here and sell people on, and that's what they did for many years with the help of the studios and the people behind the scenes, such as accomplices. Now, I talk all about this in my screenplay, all about Maryland, about the Hollywood media machine, and how they can create an image around a person. They can create an image and a story around a person to make them appear to be someone who is likable, appealing, and attractive, and make them appear to be that in order to sell their movies and also sell a story around that. And when it comes to Hollywood, they not only go out here and sell the actor or the singer or the entertainer as related to whatever they're doing, they also sell a public image around that person. And as they sell that public image around that person, they can create a mystique around that person that basically can draw you in. And as people go out here and get curious about that person, some of people will become fans, other ones will become haters, but we really don't know anything about that person accept what we were told. That's how it ran for many years. And I remember growing up in the 80s, we really didn't get to know these people outside of the articles that were published about them. The only way we could really get to know anything about these people was two ways. Either we knew about them from working on the set, or working with that person that was as intimate as people got, or you usually learned what you were told inside all these entertainment magazines and other publications. Usually in these articles, you would learn what you thought you would know about that person, but all of this was completely crafted to again create an image around that person as related to the optics of your image, and basically make an image around that person that would sell that person, and again sell the idea and the story of that person, and sell the story and the image of that person. And if they would sell the image and the optics of that person, it would create a mystique around that person that would make you excited about that person and get you so excited about hearing anything about that person that you would go out there and want to learn more about that person. So that's how they created that regarding of their celebrities, and this is how they were able to maintain their influence over the public. They were able to maintain their influence. Well, I tried to fix the microphone. I can go Wednesday night. What's going on here with this microphone? Um, when it comes to this, see, okay, what's yeah. All right? Well, I've got it. I fixed it again. So if you guys can hear me, just let me know. But when it comes to Hollywood, they create stories around these actors, and the stories that they create around these actors basically is how they go out here and sell that person. They sell that person to the public. And this is how they made their money for many years in Hollywood. This is how they went out here and made lots of money off their performers. And this is how they sold their performers to the public. And this is how people got influenced to do things like go out here and get certain hairstyles, go out here and buy certain clothes, go out here and even buy certain foods. Because if they heard a celebrity said that they liked a certain food, like I say, if I like a certain type, like I like DiGiorno pizza. If I go out here and say that, people will go out here and buy DiGiorno pizza. Influence of celebrities on people's minds, and they had that kind of influence for years. However, that influence really started to go out here and wane. It really started to wane about around 2008. That's where I say it basically peaked, because in 2008, what happened with Hollywood was it peaked because this was the year that we were before TV went digital, and it was also the year that Oprah Winfrey, the talk show host, had shown her influence based on what we saw with Arsenio Hall in 1992 with Bill Clinton. And Oprah Winfrey decided to introduce the world to Senator Barack Obama. And as Oprah Winfrey introduced the world to Senator Barack Obama, this basically started the show the influence of celebrities at its peak as related to political campaigns, because Oprah Winfrey, being the woman who was considered to be the woman America trusted, this was the woman that everybody believed in, because she had been America's talk show host from 1986 to about 2011. And 2008 was the peak year for Oprah Winfrey. And that was the year she introduced Barack Obama. And that was the year that we started to see the celebrities' influence on voters. In that year, we saw again Barack Obama going out here on the Oprah Winfrey Show talking about hope and change. And a lot of people bought into that narrative that was introduced on the Oprah Winfrey Show. But Oprah Winfrey's influence basically was what persuaded a lot of Black people and even some whites and non-Blacks to support Barack Obama. And that's what basically led to Barack Obama being able to go out here and be able to secure the primaries, even though he was an inexperienced candidate, even though he was an extremely inexperienced candidate as related to politics because he was just a rookie junior senator. But because he was endorsed by one of the most popular celebrities and one of the richest celebrities, most Americans thought they could trust Barack Obama. And that's one of the reasons why he was elected as America's first quote unquote black president, but a biracial president. And again, he managed to get the public trust with celebrity influence. And at the time you had things going on like the subprime mortgage crisis and the housing crisis. And what happened was people thought that Barack Obama would be able to provide hope and change because he was endorsed by some of the most trusted celebrities in Hollywood. And that whole situation was the thing that got people to go stand behind Barack Obama. And Barack Obama, basically, he was in here, again, one of the guys endorsed heavily by celebrities. And as he was endorsed heavily by celebrities, he managed to influence the black vote. He managed to influence people to vote for him. And many people in Hollywood thought that because Oprah Winfrey and many others, again, endorsed Barack Obama, this was going to be a winning strategy for getting a candidate elected, and continued to believe that Hollywood had great influence over the American people because the entertainment industry was basically at its ultimate peak, I would say, as a business in 2008, because 2008 basically was the year that not only did we get Barack Obama, but we saw the start of the MCU. We started to see the rise of the superhero movie, the rise of the blockbuster movie, and the economy firing and was a lot of struggling. You had Hollywood doing very well, and Hollywood thought it would basically be able to go on forever, creating its own candidates and being able to control politics. However, everything was going to change a year later as related to everything, and everything was going to change due to policies that were set up as related to Hollywood. And because Hollywood back in 1996, after they wound up electing Bill Clinton to his second term, this is where Bill Clinton made the deal that basically started the beginning of the end for Hollywood. And that deal that he made with Republicans in the House and the Senate to sign the Telecom Act into law. Well, what they were looking to do, these media companies were looking to consolidate power, but that decision basically was going to lead to the beginning of the end of Hollywood. This decision to create the Telecom Act wound up creating a situation where the government would no longer be regulating media. Moreover, it created a situation where many of these media companies would not be competing against each other because as they consolidated with each other, by the year 2000, most of the TV stations, newspapers, and magazines were owned by only 6 corporations. And those 6 corporations gained complete control of the media. They thought they could control the narrative of the media and control the overall image of what people were seeing. That's what people who created the Telecom Act thought was going to happen. Unfortunately, what happened in 2009 as we went from the transition from analog TV to digital TV is that we didn't see Hollywood go out here and get the control that they were going to get over the narrative or over the overall economy. No, what we started to see was the decline of Hollywood, and the decline of Hollywood because as they went out and looked to control the mainstream media and looked to control the digital airwaves that they lobbied to get control over, what they did was start the beginning of the end of Hollywood and started the beginning of the end of Hollywood because when you go out here and eliminate your competition, then what happens is the market wound up adapting, and the market wound up adapting because we saw the emergence of social media with websites like YouTube and websites like Twitter and Facebook. And as a result of this, with TV going digital, most of the homes of every American that used to watch TV, what they saw was that since they weren't going to be able to continue watching those analog shows, what they did was they didn't transition to digital like they expected, because what the executives in Hollywood thought was that they were going to be able to profit from people going to cable and them making large amounts of money on cable TV shows, or they thought they were going to make lots of money from people buying new TVs, but that all completely backfired. And what happened with Hollywood was they didn't expect people to adapt by going to get their entertainment from the internet and looking to get their entertainment and news from the internet. What happened with people was they started to go to the internet to get their news and information. And as high speed broadband internet was coming into more homes, people were not watching the TV stars and the movie stars anymore. And the influence of these movie stars and TV stars just started to diminish at 2009, because this is where we started to see more people starting to get into the content of YouTubers that were out here and people on social media. This is where we started to see the rise of the YouTuber, the rise of the online content creator, and the blogger. The blogger was actually the first person to go out here and be the one to start creating content. And as they were building their audience over time, this is what started to erode the influence of the movie star. This and the tunnel vision that many Hollywood studio executives had, because a lot of Hollywood studio executives, they basically, as they thought that they had control over these companies, they basically wound up in a state of tunnel vision. And that tunnel vision, as related to their heavy focus on box office, led to these Hollywood executives becoming disconnected. And as they started to disconnect from the people, and they started looking to just go out here and look to get the bigger box office that the superhero movies was getting them. And instead, what they did, but they stopped making all types of movies to get people to be entertained. This is where we saw over the course of a decade, we saw Hollywood stop making things like the R-rated comedies that starred people like Vince Vaughn and people like Cameron Diaz. These were blockbuster movies that the studios could always rely on. They stopped making romantic movies. They stopped making romantic comedies, which basically was a staple of the 90s. And then back in the early 2000s, they stopped making hand-drawn animated movies. And this whole tunnel vision basically started making it where, well, if you weren't a fan of superhero movies, all you got to see, you couldn't really see anything. And as people started to see, hey, I can't really see many of the stars, what a lot of people did was they started turning more and more to the internet, and they started watching more YouTubers, and they started watching more of the YouTubers and other online content creators. And this is how we started to see the erosion of the influence of Hollywood on the American people, because Hollywood was basically caught up in its obsession with box office, and it was caught up with its obsession with box office, with superhero movies and the MCU. I mean, you had studios like Disney caught up with the MCU. You have Warner Brothers caught up in its obsession with trying to compete with them with the DC extended universe. And you had them also making a lot of these children's CGI movies. And it just wound up sucking all the creativity out of Hollywood. This and the consolidation of media from the Telecom Act. And this led to the creative decline of Hollywood. And again, this had a major impact on the influence of the Hollywood star, because there weren't many projects being made with Hollywood stars. As we saw the decade of the 2010s go on, we started to see less films with movie stars in them. We started to see less TV shows with TV stars in them. We started to see less TV shows being produced. I mean, if we look at networks like CBS, NBC, and ABC, they all had shows that were running longer than usual, because I mean, you had Law and Order that was going on for over 20 years. You had NCIS going over 20 years. I mean, I never saw this in my life, and I grew up as a Gen Xer watching TV all the time. And I remember growing up and watching TV from about 7 a.m. some days to 11 p.m., or watching TV from about 9 to 11:30 or so. And I never had a period where I saw TV shows going on 10, 15, 20 years. No, usually a TV show when I was growing up as a kid in the 80s, a show would go maybe 5 years at the least and seven at the most. I mean, that's how long a TV show would go. I mean, 5 years was how long a sitcom would go because they wanted to go in syndication, or a drama would only go 5 years. Once they hit the 100 mark, they basically ended the show. And in many cases, if the show did prove to be profitable, and what they would do is go out and they would let the show maybe go 2 years longer, just to let somebody make a little bit more money. But usually, what happens is that many of those shows they would end, and everybody would just move on, even if the show did well in the ratings, like the Cosby Show. But even though it was doing well in the ratings, they basically said, "Okay, we've made enough. We're going to move on." I mean, many shows would do that, and they would just say, "Okay, the show is over." But I never saw this at all. And again, it's all due to Hollywood winding up in this situation due to the Telecom Act eliminating competition, and many people again getting caught up in profits because as we got this big six, all they were thinking about was box office, and that obsession with box office led to many of these people becoming disconnected. And as they became disconnected, they thought that they had influence, but their influence was eroding. I mean, their influence was going out here eroding over time and eroding because you didn't have these celebrities in front of people to go out here and be in projects. I mean, I look at a lot of performers, and I remember when they were making movies all the time, you had people working all the time. But over the course of the last decade, we haven't seen many of these performers because the studios put all their eggs into superhero movies, CGI movies, or other movies. Very few movies with people. And people in Hollywood thought, oh, I'm a star, but you're not a star unless you're in projects. That's what the things they don't understand that I learned from reading Bruce Campbell's book, If Chins Could Kill. I mean, he talked about how a star basically is about the last job you had, all about the work you're getting. And a lot of people have been working for years. And this is even before the WGA and SAG strike. People weren't working on projects. And as they weren't working on projects, there were YouTubers in front of your face every day. I mean, there were YouTubers out here like myself who produced daily content, not to mention doing live streams every week or every other day. And as the movie stars were not getting projects, what was happening was the YouTubers were working every day. And as we were working every day, what we were doing is something that the movie star never was able to do, and that was go out here and connect with people and go out here and let people get to know us. And as people got to know us and started to connect with us, this is how we form relationships with the viewer that the movie star never was able to do. Now, as social media was evolving and people were getting to know YouTubers like myself and starting to get closer to us, as people were getting closer to us and getting to know us now, what was happening was the movie star was coming on social media, but sadly, the movie star, as he was coming or the she was coming to social media, sadly, they didn't have that filter in that agent or that publicist. And since they didn't have those people to go out here and craft an image around them, what happened to the movie star as they looked to try to adapt to the entertainment industries on social media, is they presented an image of themselves that was extremely antisocial, and the image that they presented of themselves that was extremely antisocial turned a lot of people off. And as they came on social media, as they were looking to, in some cases, let people get to know them, the irony is that they got to know them. And as we got to know many of Hollywood's celebrities, this is where the Hollywood started to further wane as related to its influence. I mean, Hollywood started to wane as related to its influence because we started to get to know who these people actually were without having a publicist there to go out here and smooth out the rough images as related to their stories, smooth out the things that they say, and have somebody to again go out here and clean up things because whenever they used to do the articles in magazines like Cosmopolitan, whenever they used to do the articles in magazines like Playboy or many of these other magazines, usually the publicist and the agent and even the studio would go out here and look over what was written as related to these articles and make sure that everything fit a optical image they created for that performer. So usually there was somebody there to again craft that image around that performer and be able to create that mystique around that person that would make them appealing to the public. Unfortunately, when it comes to social media, you are the one that's ultimately in charge of your image. You are the one that's ultimately in charge of maintaining your brand. You are the one that is ultimately in charge of what you present, and what you present is a reflection of you. This is something I knew way back before I even came to YouTube. I mean, this is something as I saw the internet emerging in the year 2000, when I was working for AmeriCorps Vista at Strive, I understood that if you put something on the internet, it's a reflection of you, and it's going to be on the internet forever. So you have to be very careful about the content you curate online, because the content you curate basically is a reflection of who you are online. And sadly, what happened to many of these Hollywood individuals is they didn't know how to work the internet. And since they didn't understand how to work the internet, they started working against themselves by going out here and not looking to promote their projects, which is something was what I mostly use social media for. I mostly use social media to go out here and promote my products like my SJS Direct books, like this Esteem Horror in the Hamptons book. I mean, this is what I come here to mainly do, is to get sales of my books and let people get to know everything about how I come up with these ideas, or to talk about things that's related to men's issues. This is what I come on to. And again, I come on the air to talk about these things. And I understand I have to maintain an optical image to appear appealing to customers, and I have to present a positive image to people. But many of these celebrities, what they do is go out here is they present a lot of, again, bad reflections of themselves. And these bad reflections of themselves, what it does is it turns people off. I mean, it just turns people off because they see a side of these celebrities that basically shows the ugly side of them as related to topics such as religion, sex, or politics. And this is what turns people off. I mean, for example, you had Chris Evans, who was the actor who played Captain America. I mean, he was given one of the greatest roles as related to the MCU, but his optics here are not very smart. I mean, he's come on and started talking about far left politics. And as he went out here talking about far left politics, he just wound up turning people off. I write. I don't draw. I write stories, and again, these are prose stories on Penny Payroll. I'm glad to see my a new subscriber. But, these are prose, not stories. These theme series books, the Isis and John Hayes series books, and I hire an artist, Bill Walker, who was a great artist to do the covers for these books, and I also hire another artist, Mike Williams, to do the covers for books like John Haynes' Illuminati. So I do a lot of different. I write the stories, but I hire comic artists because comics were how I learned to read, and this is my way of helping out comic artists because I've always wanted to be in comics, and I'm hoping one day to be able to do another comic like the comic I did with Antonio Balduri, John Haynes at Death's Door. I'm hoping to do that very soon. So you can get John Haynes at Death's Door on Lulu, Penny Payroll, and you can get Esteem Horror in the Hamptons and John Haynes Illuminati and books like ISIS, Dark Incubus. You can find them all on Amazon right now, and that's what I came here to do, was sell books, and that's one of the things that I try to do as again a content creator, because I create content, and I create content not just with the books but with the videos. And again, Hollywood doesn't know how to do that online with social media, And sadly, many of their celebrities are just extremely antisocial online. They're just so caught up in their whole agendas as related to their personal and political views that they don't see that they are a business. And this is a major mistake that many of Hollywood's stars make, is not understanding they are a business. And when you're a business, you represent your business when you're online. This is what has led to the decline of the celebrity as related to their influence, is that they don't behave like professionals online. And since they don't behave like professionals online, this is where the YouTuber gets the advantage, because many YouTubers, we know we are a business. And since we know that we are a business, we understand that as a business, we represent our business, and we have to be very careful about how we behave online. Unfortunately, many of the celebrities, they go out here and they get personal on social media. And as they get personal on social media, they let us get to know them, and we get to see this ugly side of them. And this ugly side of them basically starts turning people off. And that started to get worse as Barack Obama's second term started to end. And Barack Obama's second term was like the started of the significant decline of the Hollywood performer. This is where a lot of Hollywood performers started to go berserk as related to expressing their emotions with people online. They started to go out here and started to see that, oh, Barack Obama's term is going to end. And as they started campaigning for Hillary Clinton against Donald Trump, this is where we started to see the Hollywood star start to see the ugliest side of them. And as Donald Trump started to go out here and campaign, this is where many of these celebrities, they started to not really think about their business, and they started to take things personal. And as they started taking things real personal, what they started to do was go out here and start saying all sorts of crazy stuff, because this is where I started to see the rise of the social justice warrior, and the rise of the social justice warrior talking about, all this polarized language, because we started to see polarized language with the Obama presidency. And as we started to see that polarized start to escalate, we started seeing people get personal, not really thinking about their business, because they were caught up in their feelings about Donald Trump. And as they got caught up in their feelings about Donald Trump, this is where the movie stars started to further lose their credibility, because they no longer were they were no longer these mysterious people who were living a high class lifestyle. No, they were basically showing us that they were just as ratchet and ghetto as folks in the hood, with the things that they were saying online, and the things that they were saying online, as they were saying all of this nasty personal stuff, as they were saying all this nasty personal stuff. This is what started to turn the American people off from Hollywood celebrities and seeing them as people to look up to. And as people started to look at the Hollywood celebrity, this is where the American people started to see, hey, these weren't really people we really want to look up to. No, these people are just showing how nasty and rude that they are. I mean, just getting downright nasty, and getting downright nasty and not really going out here and really thinking about what they're saying. Meanwhile, as these people were out here just putting up the ugliest image of themselves, these celebrities were putting up an ugly image, attacking even celebrities. I remember people attacking many conservative celebrities, just attacking them. What happened was with people was they were getting turned off from these celebrities as related to their just egregious behavior. And this is one of the things that led to people no longer seeing celebrities as someone they wanted to be influenced by. And as they were doing this again, we started to not only see the rise of YouTube and Facebook and Twitter having influence on people, because we started to see many of the YouTubers starting to come up. As the YouTubers were coming up, again, we were thinking about our image. We were thinking about our brand. We were staying professional online. Even when people get personal, a lot of us stayed professional. And that's what started to build trust with the YouTuber, not to mention when it came to the news media. I mean, the news media also lost credibility because we started to see a lot of things with them being personal. We started to see a lot of these newscasts really not presenting us objective news. And as they look to not present us objective news, we started to see a lot of bias in this so-called news. And that's where I saw the compromise of the journalistic integrity of Hollywood with them as we were going into the 20 teens. And again, the celebrities basically they were losing credibility, just like the news media. And again, Hollywood, they were still thinking, oh, we because we're Hollywood, because we've got this box office, we've got influence on people. Yeah, they had influence basically as related to the MCU, but they couldn't see how they were losing the audience of the American people. Yeah, there were people looking to go see movies like the Avengers Infinity Saga, and people trying to figure out where they wanted to go with the DC movies, and there were movies like Deadpool doing well, but Hollywood was not putting their stars out there on the regular to work in movies and TV shows because the number of productions was going down. Even though you had streaming going on, you had a lot of the productions going down. People were not working regularly because I remember back in the 80s and the 90s, there was a lot of work for movie stars. There would work in, if you couldn't get a feature film or a TV series, you could get a syndicated show, you could get direct to video. But the Telecom Act of 1996 destroyed those opportunities because as media consolidated, many of the small production companies that went out here and were providing jobs to many B and C list actors, many of those B and C list actors, we really could not get that kind of work out there because those small studios that basically was what was making Hollywood a lot of money. And while they put consolidated, we got the blockbuster movies like Avengers, and like Gabriel was talking about. And that movie basically was the beginning of the end of Hollywood and the beginning of the end because yes, that movie made $1 billion or $2 billion. Unfortunately, that was the peak as related to Hollywood, as related to movies. And again, the Telecom Act of 96 did that kind of damage because, again, the competition was eliminated and Hollywood was not, again, producing the films like it used to and the jobs like it used to. So Hollywood was losing its influence. And as the pandemic went on, people didn't see where Hollywood was going. I mean, Hollywood was in a really bad place as related to its ability as a business and its influence on people. And as we got into the pandemic, this is where Hollywood basically started to lose more of its credibility because now people weren't working. And as they weren't working, what was happening with many of these celebrities is they were on social media. And as they were on social media, they were basically showing their ass to people. And as they were showing their ass to people on social media, we got to see an even uglier picture and an uglier picture as we entered into the 2020 election, an ugly picture of these celebrities, an ugly picture that was, again, further alienating people. And people stopped being influenced by these celebrities and started looking at these celebrities with a side eye. So in 2020, that was another turning point because this is where we started to have issues with our celebrities. And they thought, oh, we're going to be able to go on once the pandemic is over. But that's where everything started to significantly change because, again, there were no movies out for several months. And again, there were less movies coming out because after Avengers Endgame, we didn't have the R-rated comedies. We didn't have the comedies. We didn't have the kids' movies. We didn't have the romances. I mean, the studios just stopped making those films. And since they stopped making those films, and there were no stars out there, nobody's watching those people. But people are watching people like me every day on YouTube. People are watching many people out here as related to things. This is how I found guys like V-Tuned and Sprayway Customs and found many different people. Uh, we found many people online. And as we sat there watching those people, we started to get to know them. And that's where we started to see the paradigm shift of the influence going from celebrities going to the YouTubers. And this is where podcasters like Joe Rogan started to gain more influence. This is where people out here like Ringo and guys like Kevin Samuel started building more momentum. I mean, this is where we started to see the pendulums shift from the celebrity to the YouTuber. And as we saw the pendulum shift from the movie star to the YouTuber, many of the movie stars, as they were sitting there in their ivory towers in Burbank and Beverly Hills, they were sitting there thinking, hey, I've got all this influence. I've got all this influence. I'm still a star. But the whole thing is they miss out on an adage that I learned many years ago. You are only good as your last project, and you're only as good as your last project because that's the last time people have seen you. And the sad part with most Hollywood entertainers is they don't understand people haven't seen them for years, and many people haven't seen them because of the damaging decisions that were made by Hollywood influencers, such as lobbying to get the Telecom Act of '96 approved by Bill Clinton. They were devastated by TV going digital in 2009, going away and taking away the captive audience you had analog television to go out here and sell the analog signals to the cell phone companies. And as you sold the analog signals to the cell phone companies, the cell phone wound up becoming the device that many people who were a part of Gen Z and Generation Alpha started to use to get their media. And that's where YouTubers like myself started to get a lot of influence because people watch me on a cell phone. And again, people thought they thought people were going to keep watching TV forever, but the age of the TV star wound up ending, I believe, in 2016. That's where I believe the age of the TV star wound up ending because people don't even talk about TV anymore. I mean, people don't talk about TV anymore because the kids who grew up in a world of the internet. And that was something we saw start to happen around 2010, 2011, as those kids who were born in 2000, basically, they were raised in front of computers. They were raised in front of a computer. So that's where people never really, again, understood how you shouldn't have ever changed TV from analog to digital because the analog thing had the internet at bay. As long as you had analog television, the internet was being held at bay, and it was held at bay until you decided to go digital because you had a captive audience with television. But as you decided, as the TV executives got greedy, what they did was wind up alienating all those people who had to go out here and buy brand new TVs. And as those people said, hey, I'm not going to go out here and buy a brand new TV when I'm not going to keep out here with cable. Now, some people kept their cable, but people cut their cable due to the recession. And as they cut their cable, what they did was go out here and stay on the internet. And that was basically what started, again, that decline of the movie star and started to see the beginning of the end of the movie star. I mean, the movie star wound up fading out to the background because the studios, again, were just caught up in their tunnel vision. They thought, oh, we're going to do superhero movies forever. We're going to be able to continue making that money forever. Unfortunately, what's happened now is that they're in a dire place. They're in a dire place because a lot of people, they haven't had a television for years, like Penny Payroll has said. I mean, people back in 2009, when the TV went out, they just went to the internet. They've been watching YouTube ever since. And they have not been interested in television or movies. That was further exacerbated by the pandemic, by leftist policies like the jab or vaccine mandates that they put in place that kept people from going to theaters. And basically, ever since then, they have been seeing a further erosion of the audience. I mean, Hollywood hasn't had a strong box office in 4 to 5 years. I mean, they haven't had a strong box office like they had back in 2019 in the last 4 or 5 years. And that's all due to the political policies that they pushed as related to things. And we started to see that whole thing show us that in the climax of the 2024 election. I mean, the 2024 election is where Hollywood got its wake up call. That's where Hollywood got a wake up call as related to its influence because they thought that these Hollywood stars would have the influence that they had back in the 90s. They thought they were going to have that influence to be able to persuade people like they did back in my time of 1992. And I remember 1992 because that's where I started to see the influence of celebrities that I never saw before. I remember being a kid during the time of Ronald Reagan, and I remember the Reagan era and Bush Senior. And again, you never saw celebrities coming out to endorse a candidate like that. No, I remember during the era of Reagan, basically Reagan standing up on his own. And I remember seeing Reagan just being able to promote himself. Same thing with George H.W. Bush. But with Bill Clinton, that was the first time I saw the influence of the celebrity on people. That's where I started to see, him going on the Arsenio Hall show to influence voters. I started to see him going on MTV with people like Kennedy at the time, I believe, and talking about his policies. And that really, again, rallied a lot of Gen Xers because we grew up in front of television. We grew up seeing characters like Optimus Prime and Ken and as our friends because we were latchkey kids. So anybody who was put on TV, we started to trust. But the great irony is that as we got older, we started with the whole situation with Barack Obama. Many of us Gen Xers started to not trust Barack Obama after his first term of promising hope and change. When we didn't see the hope and change, that's what basically changed everybody's perception of celebrity influence. And again, celebrity influence was changing, and as things were changing, as TV was going digital, and analog TV was taken away from us, and we were entering from the era of VCRs to DVDs to entering into streaming. We started to see the influence of the celebrity basically starting to decline because we weren't seeing these people all the time. Magazines went out of style. I mean, who has bought a magazine in any amount of time? I mean, I don't remember the last time I've seen a magazine on a stand. I mean, this I got this in the mail. I got a Harper's Bazaar from the Beetlejuice 2 movie as part of a subscription that was given to me. And again, you don't see magazines like that. Now, I was growing up as a kid in the 80s. Magazines were basically everywhere. And when you saw magazines, you could learn about the celebrity from the publicist's view, but they don't make these anymore because people get their information online, and they get their information online not from these mainstream media sources, but they get it from people on YouTube and people on social media. And that's what, again, has killed the influence of the celebrity. And nobody saw that in Hollywood. Because us YouTubers, we saw it because most of us YouTubers, we get our news not from the news from mainstream media. Now, I'll use mainstream media news as sources for my videos to get the sketch of the report, but I'll put my own analysis on things. But the whole thing is most people don't really look at mainstream news. They get their news mostly from YouTubers, and they get their information mostly from YouTubers. So a lot of these guys were sitting there thinking, oh, these celebrities have influence. They think, oh, the celebrity has pull because, oh, he's got a million followers online, or he's got subscribers online. A lot of these guys are not doing a good job cultivating or curating their image or curating the media around them. And most of those people basically have just disappeared. I mean, that's what they do. They look at your pictures, but they don't know you as a person and what they know about you as a person from your Twitters and stuff. Again, it turns people off. So a lot of these studios thought, oh, we'll go out here and we'll just carpet bomb people with images of Kamala Harris standing at the side of these celebrities, not understanding that the celebrity had no influence whatsoever over people anymore. Many of the celebrities, they don't have that influence anymore, and that was shown by the disastrous performance of Kamala Harris in the 2024 election because she got a whole series of A-listers surrounding her. She got a whole series of A-listers surrounding her as related to things. I mean, this is what Kamala Harris had as related to stuff. And as she went out here and had this situation, she basically wound up again thinking, oh, I've got all these stars. I've got all these stars behind me. But she didn't really think critically about the kind of stars she had in front of her. I mean, she had celebrities like Beyonce out here But the critical question people need to ask about Beyonce is when was her last record? I mean, yeah, she had that Western record, but that really was one that was divisive and basically alienated a lot of people. And the whole thing with Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion is they weren't really women that people found to be appealing. I mean, these were women who were basically presenting a promiscuous image of black women and turned off a lot of women. I mean, this is what was going on with Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion. I mean, they weren't really selling to people. And then there were the other actresses like Julia Roberts, who hadn't been seen in a movie in a good 10 to 15 years, and Jessica Alba and Jennifer Aniston. I mean, these were actors from about 30 years ago. These were actors who came out about 30 years ago who were out here again putting in performances way back when I was in my 20s. And now that I'm 51, I can tell you that these women have no influence on anybody from Gen Z or Generation Alpha. I mean, these people have no sort of connection to influence anyone. I mean, it wasn't like Bill Clinton with Arsenio Hall because Arsenio Hall was a older, was not that old, and neither was Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was in his late 40s, but Kamala Harris was a 60-year-old woman standing at the side of women who were in any age range from about 40 to 60 years old. And these women who were 40 to 60 years old, many of the millennials, many of Z and Generation Alpha, we looked at those women, they were looking at those women as mama, auntie, and grandma. So they had no influence. And many of these Hollywood folks, again, were completely disconnected. They are still stuck in a world that's stuck in about 1992 because it was in 1992 that the celebrity had influence like that. But the celebrity no longer has that kind of influence. And it just shows how out of touch many of those in Hollywood are. Many of those in Hollywood are just completely out of touch with reality. And again, out of touch because you're sitting there with celebrities from the 80s, the 90s, and the early 2000s, sitting there thinking that their endorsement meant something. I mean, it just shows how Hollywood was out of touch related to its influence on America because people were already just, they weren't listening to these old people. And I'm sitting there, I was looking at it, I was like, these people are old. I mean, because as who studied the entertainment industry for over 25 years, I understand that you have to look at things in the context of time. When you look at things in the context of time, I mean, an endorsement from a 60-year-old woman like a Julia Roberts, an endorsement from a 45 or 48-year-old Jessica Alba, the mother of two children, it's not going to resonate with a group of people like a group of 20 somethings because they don't see a person that they aspire to be like. I mean, they don't see a person they aspire to be like because this is an older person. Moreover, when you see the behavior of this person as related to social media, it's a complete turnoff. I mean, this is where Hollywood really didn't think about how their stars were looking, but they weren't thinking about how their stars were looking because they got a bunch of bean counters running things in Hollywood. And all they're thinking about is box office and not the optics. I mean, the optics of Hollywood, they look really bad. I mean, it looks really bad when you've got people who, yeah, they were popular in 1992. They were popular in 1996. They were popular in 1998. They were popular in 2000. They were popular in 2005 at the most. I mean, these were people whose day was basically done. And you had all of these washed up celebrities out here, and even somebody like Taylor Swift, who was basically teetering on things because she's pretty old herself. And this was one of the things that basically led to them thinking, oh, these Hollywood stars have influence. No, we see they have no influence anymore. No, the world has completely changed. And as the world has completely changed, what we're seeing is that the movie star no longer has the influence it had over people anymore. And that's because they no longer have anybody out here to curate an image over them. They no longer have that publicist to create that image and that mystique around them. They no longer have that publicist or that studio to go out here and check their articles to make sure that there's no stuff out there about them. No, in this internet age, when it comes to the movie star basically is fading out. I mean, the movie star has basically wound up fading out. And that's part of the 2024 election fallout is us seeing the end of Hollywood's influence over the American people. The American people are no longer swayed by celebrities. The American people no longer are care about celebrities anymore. I mean, I remember when there was a time people got excited about celebrities. I remember when a magazine featured a celebrity like this Purple Bazaar with Winona Ryder. This thing would be basically selling like hotcakes. But these days, they send these type of magazines to me for free with a cell phone subscription. I mean, I remember the days when again you couldn't keep these magazines off the rack. But these days, nobody buys magazines to learn about celebrities. No, we can learn about everything by doing a Google search on a celebrity or watching a couple of YouTube videos. And that's what we do these days. And again, when we start to do that, we stop turning away from many of these celebrities, stop caring about these celebrities, because as the celebrity started to show us who they were, it started to present an ugly picture about them, like in the case of Sean P. Diddy Combs, where he was in the 90s considered a music mogul and a big shot that every kid aspired to be like, who was in the presence of some of the greatest rappers of all time, like Biggie Smalls and other guys out there. And people thought he was a good guy based on the stories that were told. But once we got to know who Diddy was and learn how much of a sexual deviant he was, that basically turned people off from Diddy Combs. And that's the type of thing that damaged the image of many of these celebrities. But that didn't stop Hollywood executives going out here and having people say they needed to go out here and support Kamala Harris. And the way they supported Kamala Harris basically turned people off because they made it an us versus them situation, not understanding that the us versus them was turning them from the American people, because the American people, as we were out here struggling to pay for basic things like groceries, rent, electric bills, we saw these millionaires and billionaires, people worth hundreds of millions of dollars, basically living in mansions and basically living better than we ever could. These were the people telling us that we were bad people if we didn't want to support Kamala Harris. And that I believe, the straw that broke the camel's back as related to people and their affair with celebrities. Now, people had already been losing interest because we weren't seeing these people due to the bad business decisions that went on in Hollywood. And the bad business decisions made it where they were making less projects. And that was further exacerbated by the what they call the SAG and WGA strikes of 2023. Now, those strikes in and of themselves, there was a good reason for them because the studios basically weren't paying people right. But the whole thing is that those celebrities, as they were obnoxious out here, again, these were people making millions of dollars, and again, making millions of dollars and living in mansions. They weren't looking out for the average everyday working man and woman in Hollywood. The average everyday working man and woman in Hollywood, they don't really make that much money from things like guest spots. They don't make that much money as related to royalties, as related to scripts that you write. I mean, those people were the ones who wound up suffering as a result. And what happens with many of these studios is they continue to express their contempt for the little man. And as that strike went over and they started to get even less projects and more people out of work, we started to see again these billionaires, millionaires, and people who were living very well, again, trying to tell us who to vote for and thinking they had the same influence that they had back in 1992. And they didn't understand how the world of entertainment had changed over the last 30 years. Many of these people didn't understand that the world of entertainment had completely changed over the last 30 years. They didn't understand that people in entertainment, they were finding themselves in a place where they were having less jobs And if you have less jobs, you have less influence. I talk about that in my screenplay all about Maryland. I mean, the last thing you want to hear from is somebody who hasn't worked in years telling you who to vote for when you're out here just trying to keep your head above water. I mean, most people are trying to keep their head above water as related to bills they're trying to pay. And here you have a celebrity out here who has millions of dollars, has FU money, and is sitting on a stack of FU money, hundreds of millions of dollars, telling you that you need to support a candidate who's a part of an administration that has expressed nothing but contempt for you, is completely disconnected and detached from you, and is more about sending money to countries like Ukraine and sending money to people who entered the country illegally and gone out here and raised people's taxes and gone out here and done things like that. I mean, this is the kind of thing that alienated people from Hollywood. They've got the I've got mine, screw you mentality. And again, they basically disrespected most of the people telling you to support a candidate when telling you you're a bad person if you support Donald Trump or if you stay home. And that whole statement in and of itself was a middle finger at the people who paid the salaries of these people for over 30 years, because over the last 30, 40 years, we basically paid the salaries of many of these actors and these producers and basically allowed them to become the billion-dollar business. And middle America basically felt like it was completely betrayed by these Hollywood people. And that's one of the other reasons why they no longer have influence on us, because they show how little they care about the average everyday working man and woman. No, they show how little they regard us at all. They don't appreciate the people who made them into stars. And that's why these stars have wound up falling in the eyes of the American people. They wound up falling in the eyes of the American people because as they were out here, like Barack Obama, finger wagging in front of people and Michelle Obama shaming people and going out here standing at the side of them, again, this was contempt directed at the American people who paid these people's salaries for generations. I mean, this is the disrespect that was directed at most American people. And this is why they wound up losing their influence in this 2024 election, because people looked at this party, the Blue Party, and looked at the way Kamala Harris's campaign openly disrespected the average everyday working man and woman. I mean, the working man and woman who was a teenager who saved their money from their fast food jobs or their jobs at the hardware store or their jobs at the mall to go see their movies. As those people grew up to become mothers and fathers, they were basically had a middle finger thrown up at them by the Harris campaign, and that basically was the why we saw the people voting the way that they did. And when they voted the way that they did, it basically showed the end of Hollywood's influence on America. And anybody who looked at the box office could see the end of Hollywood's influence, because when you have movies by A-list stars like Tom Hanks doing poorly at the box office, that's not just because of just the story, but it also shows how the American people have lost interest in these films. Now, I've been studying the ratings and the box office for over 30 years, and I haven't seen box office this bad. I mean, people don't get excited unless it's like a certain kind of movie like Beetlejuice for the nostalgia, because people grew up with Beetlejuice as kids with the cartoon. They grew up with Beetlejuice, the movie. When I was 14 when I first saw it. And many people, we grew up with that type of nostalgia. Or you have a movie like Deadpool and Wolverine where people basically love those characters, but we don't see people running to draw to see movies with actors in them anymore. No, we don't see people trying to go to movies with actors anymore. I remember when guys like George Clooney could open a movie at 20 million. I remember when guys like Will Smith could open movies at 20 million. I remember when Denzel Washington could open movies at 30, 40 million. And I remember when Julia Roberts could open at 20 million, and Demi Moore could do this. But many of those actors and actresses today, they can't do this at all because, one, they're older, and Hollywood hasn't done a good job of going out here and creating new stars. No, these bean counters are so caught up in trying to make movies with these old stars who are basically, I'm 51, and that's considered young for an actor these days. Many of these actors are 50, 60, 70 years old, and they haven't gone out here and cultivated a 20 something actor. I mean, we haven't seen a 20 something actor in years, and it's really troubling. I mean, I remember when I was in my 20s, most of the average actors' ages were like 20 to 30 years old. But these days, the average actor's age is 45 to 60, even 70 years old. And I mean, they're not developing new talent, and you're just developing a bunch of old people. And it's a sad thing because, again, it shows how Hollywood has lost its touch with the people. I mean, Hollywood was a youth based business. It's a youth based business, but the thing is, I'm seeing so many old people. I'm sitting there going, you got Will Smith, who's 55 or so, Halle Berry, who's about 57, Demi Moore, who's 61. I mean, I follow a lot of these people on Instagram, and they're senior citizens, but you've got Hollywood thinking they have the clout that they did in the 90s. I'm sitting there going, it's been 30 years since the 90s. And again, I don't see no young talent. The only young talent I have seen so far is basically Jenna Ortega and Kiana Madiera. And I was referred to Kiana Madiera by one of my viewers who read Spellbound and Spinsterella and said that she would make a good Matilda Crowley. And when I'm looking at her, it's like, yeah, she would be a good baby bat Matilda Crowley. But the whole thing is nobody's developing young talent. Nobody's training young talent. I mean, these people are extremely old. And real back to John Travolta. I saw John Travolta in a commercial as a Santa Claus back last year in Christmas. I mean, this is basically, again, the sad state of affairs with John Travolta. The last time he saw him was in a commercial. And again, he's basically, again, in his late 60s. And again, Hollywood doesn't have that influence anymore because we've got a lot of old, disconnected boomers working in Hollywood. We've got a bunch of old, disconnected Hollywood executives, and they thought that they could campaign with these old people. They thought they could go out here and campaign with these old people and influence young people to go out here and vote. But the young people, basically, a lot of them, if they did vote, they voted for Donald Trump. And again, they voted for Donald Trump because these celebrities were an insult to them. It's an insult to a kid who's a part of Gen Z or Generation Alpha. I mean, a lot of these kids were out here looking for work, looking to find a job. And when they get on jobs, they get attacked that are related to things instead of given guidance. I mean, nobody wants to sit down and really go out here and teach the young talent, and nobody wants to go out here and give help to the young talent. I mean, a lot of the young talent is what I said, they're not job ready because of the family system that we destroyed in this country. And again, that's all part of Hollywood's influence on America. Rich people wanted to, again, have the TV influence people, but nobody watches TV anymore. I mean, the only time I watch TV these days is whether I want to watch a Gordon Ramsay show like Hell's Kitchen or MasterChef or Hotel Hell or Next Level Chef or WWE or AEW wrestling. I mean, that's the only time I basically am watching television. I mean, most of the TV shows have been on for over a cajillion years. I mean, a show like The Simpsons, yeah, it was influential in the 90s, but this show has been on for about 35 years. It should have been off the air in 2000, but the studio just keeps it on. The same way Nickelodeon, believe not Nickelodeon, one of them keeps SpongeBob on. I mean, these shows basically have been on for decades, and that's why people just stop watching TV. I mean, you're producing old TV content, you're creating old stuff, and much of your audience, they want to see something new, so they're headed over to YouTube. They're headed over to platforms to watch guys go on live streams. I mean, they want more people know who Kai Cenat is than they know who the latest movie star is. I mean, people haven't been watching TV for years. And again, Hollywood basically lost its influence because it's greed. I mean, Hollywood basically was so greedy for looking to try to control the media and control the narrative of the media, that they didn't see how they basically wound up losing the audience. And they wound up losing the audience. And as they wound up losing the audience, they kept their stars from working. And as they kept their stars from working, that prevented them from having influence, because in order for them to have influence, they have to work. So everything they were doing basically was doing damage to them, but they couldn't see the damage they were doing to themselves. I mean, they weren't really sitting down and talking to people like I do online. I mean, I talk to people. I remember I did the video talking about Cartoon Network. I mean, one of my biggest videos was requested by a viewer, and people remember Cartoon Network from the 90s, because a lot of millennials grew up with Cartoon Network. A lot of Gen Z grew up with Cartoon Network. I mean, and they wound up killing Cartoon Network. They killed Cartoon Network, even though Cartoon Network is what you want. You want a network that's going to appeal to younger viewers. But these old executives, they kill Cartoon Network. And again, it shows you how out of touch Hollywood is. You're not making anything for the younger customer. You're not making anything for the younger audience. You're not making anything for people. And then you're wondering why you're losing influence, why your movies are failing. And again, 2024 election showed us how Hollywood has lost its connection to the American people, how Hollywood lost its way with the American people, and how Hollywood is out of touch with the American people. I mean, I have been seeing this with the box office as related to the films and the projects that they release, with all these sequels, reboots, and remakes. I mean, nothing original that speaks to people, nothing that creates a relationship with people, nothing that really talks to people, because that Tom Hanks film here was basically a vanity art house project that they thought was going to do well at the box office because it reunited the cast of Forrest Gump. But that film was 30 years ago, and people only remember Tom Hanks from 30 years ago. And most of the people who remember Tom Hanks, again, are my age, and I'm like 51. And again, these people, again, that's not the audience you want. You want an audience that's going to appeal to all of the younger audience, and you want to make sure that the younger audience has money. And that's why you want Gen Z to have the job, because Gen Z is going to spend money. But you have people in America who do things completely backwards. And that's part of the fallout that's related to this whole election. I mean, this is something that's going to, I'm hoping, give Hollywood a wake up call. But I don't think that they still are waking up yet. No, they're still thinking that things like the social justice narrative and the woke, as they call it, is going on, is still something. But the whole thing is, this election shows that nobody's listening to Hollywood anymore, because when your $1 million celebrities cannot go out here and change the vote, what happens is you see that the Hollywood celebrity has no influence anymore. I mean, when you see Donald Trump win a popular vote and the electoral college and get not only the presidency, but get the House and the Senate with full majorities, what does that say about the influence of the Hollywood celebrity? It says that the Hollywood celebrity doesn't have the influence that they had in 1992. It says that the Hollywood celebrity doesn't have the pull like they did in 1992 or 2008 when Oprah endorsed Barack Obama. I mean, when Oprah endorsed Barack Obama, it basically wound up validating him as a viable candidate for being inexperienced. When Bill Clinton played the sax on the Arsenio Hall song, that empty symbolic gesture, it basically galvanized a black base to go out here and run to vote for him. So we see that the Hollywood celebrity has no more influence on the American people. And that has been shown to me in the last 3 to 4 years with the anemic box office as related to anything that's not a superhero movie. I mean, most of these movies these days no longer have the star to be a draw. And they're not a draw because many of the millennials, many of the Gen Z and the Gen Xers, we no longer see these stars as people to look up to. We no longer see these people as people to get excited about. We no longer see these people as somebody we need to go out here and must see, that we have to drop everything like we did in the 90s when an episode of Seinfeld came on. We no longer see these people as people we need to go out here and watch on regular. No, we don't see those people as people, we need to go out here and really, again, just take our time and be a part of. We don't see those people as people we need to go out here and watch on the regular. We don't see these people as people we need to care about, and that's what shows again the complete erosion of influence of the celebrity in Hollywood. And these were the people who were advising as related to the 2024 campaign. I mean, George Clooney was a big time celebrity, big time millionaire out here, told Joe Biden to again leave the presidency. I mean, he thought that he would go out here and think that he could go out here and push this type of campaign. And basically, we thought we had that kind of influence. We thought he would have that kind of influence, but we clearly see that he doesn't have that influence anymore. And that's what's happened with this whole thing with Hollywood. Hollywood's influence over the American people is basically over at this point. And that's one of the things that came out of this is that Hollywood thought, hey, we're going to be able to run things. But the only thing we're seeing is that people are walking away from Hollywood. They're walking over to the podcasters like Joe Rogan. They're walking over to YouTubers like myself. I mean, people have moved on from the Hollywood star. And that's the thing that basically is got the YouTubers in a different place. Now, when it comes to YouTube wants to be like Netflix, but the whole thing is that Hollywood in itself is on its way out. And if YouTube goes out here and alienates the YouTuber, they're going to wind up losing their business. They're going to wind up losing their business because, again, we see from this election fallout, the YouTubers were the ones who had the influence over the election. New black media, like Professor Black Truth and many others out here, like Mr. Chris from Chris and Company, they basically had pushed the whole no tangibles, no black agenda, no vote. And that led to a lot of black people staying home and also revealed the information on Kamala Harris not being black and not really being out here looking to serve the black community. And as people played the tape of Kamala Harris saying that she wasn't going to do anything for black people, that had more influence than all of those A-list celebrities. People seeing that iconic video of her saying, where she laughed about not doing anything for black people, showed the influence of new black media. This and then the late David Carroll letting everyone know the truth about the Blue Party. All of this had a major impact on people and again had more influence on voters all around because people were watching YouTubers, and that was all the fault of all those greedy people back in the 90s, those greedy folks in the 90s who thought, hey, we're going to control American media by eliminating competition. But the great irony is that they wound up eliminating themselves. And as they eliminated themselves, what they did was put the nails in their own coffin, and that did them in. Yeah, I heard about that, D Wood. I may do a whole video on that view because it shows how many of these leftists are. I mean, they have been trying to censor people ever since black men came to YouTube. And again, censoring people basically shows how disconnected they are from reality because even if you stuff your ears and close your eyes, reality is going to happen. And this is a problem that many leftists have. They think they can censor people and censor people to make their reality reality. But the whole thing is reality doesn't care about your feelings. That's something many of us Gen Xers understood growing up as a kid. I mean, when you're a Gen Xer, you understand that reality doesn't care about your feelings. Life is just going to happen. And many of these folks in the entertainment industry, they're basically learning the hard way. They're learning the hard way about this overall. And when it comes to YouTube, they don't want to, again, they also, I believe, if Trump gets inaugurated, they're going to start going on the censorship tip. Same thing with Facebook, same thing with Instagram, because they see the power of social media. And the power of social media, again, they want to try to rein it in, but the whole thing is that you can't rein it in because you went out here and gave that power away. You could have had the masses out here reading magazines and looking at VHS tapes, but because they were greedy, they wanted to go out here and use technology, hoping that they could control the media. And the whole thing is, you get, as you look to control people, you wound up giving more control to the people, which is the way it's supposed to work. Because as you look to make TV digital and look to control people, people just migrated over to the internet. And they migrated over to the internet because nobody wanted to spend $800 on a brand new TV. Nobody wanted to go out here and spend $300 on cable. Nobody wanted to spend money on these things or be told, oh, we're not going to make any more VCRs. We're not going to make any more DVD players. People have just decided, hey, I want to be entertained, so I'll go look at what I want to look at. And that's what happened to lead to the fall of Hollywood and the influence of Hollywood. And many of these companies, they're learning the hard way with this 2024 election that what they say is not what they're going to get people to do. And they basically have been digging their own grave ever since the 1990s. And now they're just reaping what they sowed, later than what they sowed, greater than what they sowed. And that's the whole thing that's happening to these companies. Again, this is what is part of the election fallout, is that they're basically getting their wake-up call as related to seeing that Hollywood no longer controls the American media or the narratives as related to media. No, most people basically are not, again, paying these companies any attention. They're not even caring about these movies. I mean, outside of maybe a handful of movies like Wolverine and Deadpool, or Deadpool and Wolverine, I get it mixed up, but most of us really don't care about those movies anymore. And most of us don't care about movie stars because when's the last time we've heard about a movie star being in a project that wasn't a superhero movie? Critical question I would ask many of these entertainment moguls. I mean, when's the last time we've heard about one of your quote unquote properties in a project and ever in the last 4 or 5 years? When is the last time we have heard about any of your stars being in anything people care about? I mean, I tried to sit down when I had that Amazon Prime subscription to watch the movie Challengers, and I turned it off in about 20 minutes when I saw the two male leads kissing each other, and I said, enough's enough with that. I'm done with this. And that was a movie starring Zendaya, and again, messed up that young woman's career. And I haven't heard any of these people working in years. And again, I watch movies like, I tried to watch Lisa Frankenstein, a movie that just had antisocial themes. And again, people don't understand, again, Hollywood has no influence on people anymore. I mean, people don't really care about movies like that anymore. They've lost their mystique. They've lost their story. I mean, nobody really is into them. And K-Song, I know where you feel about Spike Lee, because Spike Lee selling out like that, I mean, that turned me off. I mean, I'll never watch another Spike Lee movie again because I know that he's a sellout at this point, now that he's got his 40 ounces and a mule. And now that I know that he's got his 40 ounces and a mule, I'll never watch another Spike Lee movie. And that's again, shows you the fallout as related to the influence of these stars. I mean, when I was younger, I wanted to, again, make stories like Spike Lee, humanized stories that presented a human image of Black people. But now that I see that Spike Lee is a sellout, I want nothing to do with him or anything to do with anything that he's done. I mean, I want to go out here and make my own kind of stories, but I don't want to sell people out. And again, I look at this whole thing as related to this election as a major paradigm shift. And I said there was going to be a paradigm shift way back in about 2021. I said there was going to be a paradigm shift in the culture, but it happened in 2024, not 2021, like I thought it was going to happen. And people are finally, at this point, fed up with the social justice. They're fed up with being talked down to by celebrities. They felt like they're tired of people disrespecting them, all because they've got their mansions and their money. I mean, people are just tired of celebrities. We're just disgusted with them. And again, there's no way to rehabilitate their image or rehabilitate them in the eyes of the public because we've seen the worst of their behavior. I mean, we've seen the absolute worst of their behavior as related to social media. And now that we've seen the worst of their social media and them not taking care of their business, many of these celebrities are basically on the road to going out of business. And that's the sad story that's going on with many of these celebrities. That's what's going on with them overall. Now, in K-Song, what happened in Challengers is that two white guys wanted to get with Zendaya, but started to get with themselves. And that's when I had to get out of that movie. I mean, this movie, Challengers, it's stomach churning. And I saw it on Amazon Prime. And when I started to see that they were, it was getting really twisted, it was just time for me to go. And I mean, this film had a scene that was just absolutely disturbing. And I couldn't watch it anymore. So I had the free subscription to Amazon Prime. I watched a couple of movies so that I could take them to the barbecue. I still have to take American Society of Magical Black People to the barbecue. And the whole thing is that I was just disgusted by that movie. I cut it off around the 30-minute mark and just could not watch any more of Challengers because it was a challenge to watch. The movie was very slow. I mean, I finally got a chance to see American Fiction, American Society of Magical Black Folks, and Challengers, but Challengers I just could not get through. And that was one of the things that, again, turns you off about Hollywood. They just keep pushing these agendas in their films. They just don't tell you a good, simple story like I try to do. I mean, I try to tell just a good, simple story in my books like Esteemed Horror in the Hamptons or a story like John Haynes' Illuminati. I just try to tell basic, simple stories and just give you a basic story that anybody could sit there and read, like Isis Amari's Revenge or Isis Dark Incubus. I mean, I give you a story with no social justice, no identity politics, just people being people you can relate to. That's what I put in my work. And that's one of the things that's turned people away from Hollywood is that they always push these anti-social agendas in their movies. I mean, that's what I saw in Challengers. That's what I saw in Lisa Frankenstein, a movie that I just got disgusted by, and American Society of Magical Colored People, and other movies. I mean, I just got turned off by those movies. Thank you, Shrek 5 Ever. I mean, I just got turned off by those movies. And that's what was something that I just got turned off on. And that's one of the things that Hollywood is doing. It's just turned off its audience. It's alienated its audience. It's disgusted its audience because the audience isn't talking to we the people. It's not about having a relationship with we the people. That's what Hollywood used to be about, selling stories that showed us regular, everyday life, but we're not seeing everyday life. All we're seeing is the perversions and deviant ideas from many of these Hollywood executives. Many of these Hollywood executives either want you to see their perverted, deviant ideas or their deviant agenda, or what they want to do is go out here and present you remakes and other things filled with social justice and identity politics, not understanding that those films were a period of their time. I mean, this is what they put out here, and this is not what I want to be a part of, and that's why I walked away from Hollywood and started, again, doing my own thing. I mean, when I was a kid, I wanted to work in movies and TV, but now that I see what it is, I want nothing to do with it. I want to make stuff like Shrek 5 Ever says about healthy Black people. That's what I have in my upcoming 2025 catalog with Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer, where we're going to see Matilda in the year 2000 in the world of goth modeling and then I'm going to talk about the rise of goth e-commerce, because that was a major part of history we're seeing right now. And I wanted to show where all that got started. So that's what I have in 2025. Right now, I'm also working on John Haynes, A Thorn in My Side, which is going to be about John Haynes dealing with a CIA agent. And I have Esteemed Season of the Witch Girl, which is going to be a story that revolves around Esteemed taking on a wicked teenage witch. So I look at things, and again, I would rather go out here and create balanced, humanized content, which is what you're not getting from Hollywood. And the 2024 election basically showed us how Hollywood is out of touch with the American people, how Hollywood is disconnected from American people, how Hollywood does not really understand what the American people are going on dealing with as related to what we're dealing with as related to things. I mean, the American people, we are out here trying to go out here and make a living after a pandemic. We see businesses go out basically every day. I mean, me and my family member, we were going to do some shopping, and we saw that there were stores that went out of business in our major shopping district here in Metropolitan Avenue. I mean, that's what we're seeing out here when we're out here. We're not seeing businesses doing very well. I mean, One Full Boss, that's basically what it is. It's Esteem versus Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, One Full Boss. That's what's coming up next year. And there are going to be a lot of goth girls K-Song in Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer. This one is going to have the largest goth cast of all the Spinsterella books. Got lots of different goth characters. So there's going to be, this book is going to be a fun one. It's going to be a long one at that. I'm trying to cut it down from 692 pages at this point. But this book is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to take you back to the year 2000. It's going to show you that time in life and how great that time was. I mean, this one, Gabriel, you're going to like too, because this one features lots of goths and is, again, one of the best goth books I've done so far, I believe. And it's one I'm looking forward to sharing with everyone. But the 2024 election fallout shows us again how Hollywood doesn't talk to people, doesn't make stories that relate to people. I mean, I haven't seen Hollywood in such a bad place since what I read about the 1960s and the early 1970s, where we saw this disconnect where people weren't connecting with the baby boomers as related to entertainment. I mean, back then, that's when we saw a major disconnect between Hollywood and the audience, and they almost went out of business. I mean, it happened almost then. But right now, Hollywood is in the worst place it's been since the late 1960s and early 1970s, when the studios almost went under. And the great irony is that the same baby boomers who were supporting all of the indie films that became the first blockbusters, like Tom Laughlin's Born Losers, Melvin Van Peebles' Sweetback, and many of the other filmmakers out here, like the director of The Godfather, I think it's Francis Ford Coppola. I mean, those guys revolutionized film, but sadly, the boomers who revolutionized film have become just as disconnected as those from the previous generation. I mean, if it wasn't for those studios basically adapting, but sadly, nobody's adapting. Nobody's looking to make those new young stars. Nobody's looking to make those stories that resonate with many of the Gen Z and the Generation Alpha. I mean, that's what I try to do with the SJS Direct imprint. And it's something I try to do all the time. But the whole thing is none of these guys are looking to talk to people of today. Nobody's looking to form relationships with people of today. And that's the big problem with Hollywood, is that they're out of touch with the people. And with them being out of touch with people, they basically showed that by their whole support of Kamala Harris, and again, supporting a candidate based on ideals instead of looking to talk to real people. I mean, the Kamala Harris campaign didn't have a single regular person that they talked to at all. I mean, they never talked to a regular, average, everyday guy on the street. They wanted to rig everything to basically fit what their reality, and they basically staged things to fit their reality. And as they sat in their echo chamber, what they did was turn off all those people. They turned off all those people who were out here who were struggling and saw that, hey, this person doesn't care about me. And that was the thing that, again, alienated so many people, and again, showed how Hollywood's influence on America is basically over, and basically over at this point, because nobody really cares about Hollywood at this point, and nobody really cares about Hollywood at this point, because Hollywood has shown its contempt for we, the people. And when you show your contempt for the customer doesn't buy your products, which is what's how people are doing right now. People aren't buying Hollywood products anymore, like these movies and TV shows, and they're going over to YouTube. They're going over to people like me with the SJS Direct imprint. They go over and look to get those kind of products because they see their life being presented and they see a person who cares about them. That's what we're seeing with this disconnect going on. And Hollywood, if it continues on this course and doesn't correct its course, basically is going to go out of business. I mean, at this point, again, with this 2024 election, we see a Hollywood that's in the worst place that it's been, again, since the late 1960s and 1970s, that almost bankrupted these studios. I mean, coming out of the WGA and SAG strikes, which basically led to the studios making less work, which made there being less stars, which means that they have less influence over the public. They are in a place where they're in an even worse place. And with the 2024 election showing that these stars basically can't draw anybody, because part of being a draw is having the influence to persuade people to behave in the fashion that they want. I mean, part of the influence of a star is the ability to get people to behave in a certain fashion. But many stars don't have that influence because they get on social media, they say stupid things, they do stupid things, and the worst thing that they could do was go out here and show their backside to the public and disrespect the public. This is the biggest mistake that they made. And again, basically make the mistake, like Penny Payroll said, mistaking fame for influence. And again, they lost their influence and they lost their audience, which means they lost their value as related to the business of entertainment. Because again, you're only as good as your last project. And their last project was the 2024 election. And since these guys couldn't draw, what they're going to do is not look to go out here. That phone ain't going to be ringing. And a lot of people are going to be wringing their hands because they've proven that they are no longer useful to the Hollywood machine. So the 2024 election fallout is going to do devastating damage to all those folks in Hollywood who are learning that they basically are on the road to getting a pink slip and winding up like the character Marilyn Marie in my screenplay book, All About Marilyn, where they're basically trying to eke out an existence because their days of stars has basically faded at this point. So I'm going to get ready to wrap up tonight's stream. I want to thank everybody for coming out to tonight's stream. And I really had a great time talking about Hollywood and celebrities, because this is something that I really know about very well, about the entertainment business. And I want to thank everybody for coming out for tonight's show. I mean, had one of the biggest audiences we've ever had, 117 in the room. Let's get those likes up. I mean, have 117 in the room. Let's get those likes up because that helps with the YouTube. We got 85 likes. Let's get them up to 100. Really appreciate that. Again, if you guys really want to help out the channel, I've been having a slow month for sales. October, I only had 9 book sales. So I'm asking everybody to pick up some of the books that I showed as related to the SJS Direct Imprint. I'm asking everybody to pick up some of these books on Amazon.com. They're great gifts for your family. They're great for your kids. I mean, everything I put in these books is family friendly. Readers of all ages can read these. You can feel safe about putting these on your coffee table with your kids. I mean, that's the type of content I make. I try to keep everything PG-13, just like I do for my comic John Haynes at Death's Door, which you can find on Lulu right now. I mean, you can find John Haynes at Death's Door on Lulu.com. You can get that book right here on Lulu in paperback, and you can also get it on the Kindle for about $3.99. So thank you, Shrek 5 for the vote of confidence. Really appreciate that. I mean, John Haynes at Death's Door. That's the first comic that I did. I want to do another crowdfunding project one of these days, but this is the first one I've done. I've also did another comic, Esteem No Good Deed. So want to again go out here and sorry, that put the wrong link up. Put the link up to Isis, All About the Goddess. I'm sorry, but let me do this again. And if I also would like you guys to help me stay on the air. And the ways you guys can help me to stay on the air is to donate to the Cash App or the PayPal. That also helps me to stay on the air. Really, that helps me again out a lot as related to staying on the air. I know it's hard for everybody. Even $1 will help. So really appreciate everybody coming out and spending their day and their morning with me, wherever you are in the world. So really want to thank you guys for that. And I also want to thank the viewer who gave me the super chat. Who gave me a super chat. I think, let me find out where it is. But I really want to thank everybody. Really appreciate you having your time with me. And I hope you'll be here for next week's stream. Everybody have a great evening. Everybody have a good night. Really enjoyed spending time with you, and I hope to do it again.